Hello and welcome to Unwatchables, the film podcast where we leave our inhibitions and sometimes our good sense at the door. I am Marc Dottavio.
And I'm Seth Troyer.
And today we are joined by Cinematary's Grace Winburne to help us chart one film's course from the defining flop of the 90s to midnight cult classic to the unlikely subject of critical reappraisal. That film of so many lives is Paul Verhoeven's 1995 erotic drama / maybe dark comedy / maybe satire, Showgirls. And here to help us figure out if all those maybes were necessary is Grace Winburne. You can find her writing at Cinematary.com. She is also a frequent co-host of the Cinematary podcast. And Grace, thank you for gracing us with your presence.
Oh my gosh. I love that. No,
Never
I love
heard
it every
that one
time I hear
before.
it. I hear it all the time. It gets funnier every time.
I bet you do.
Oh, honey, you don't have to say that. You don't have to say that, okay?
What? I don't have to tell the truth?
You'll be just fine.
No, I'm so...
Well, yeah, it's so good to have you, Grace. And
It is so
yeah,
nice
we
to
love
be here.
Cinematary. We've had Zach and Andrew on, and we had to get you on as well.
Thank you. I feel really special.
Well, you should. And yeah, so I guess we'll dive in. It's rare that we pick one movie for an episode. Usually we got a theme and we're doing two movies. Well, this movie we kind of all agreed, is big enough for one episode. It's that much attitude and weirdness and wildness. And why did you feel like you wanted to talk about it?
Oh, did we lose Seth?
I think so. For a split second.
Seth, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
It like stopped you in the middle of I think when you were asking Grace why she picked this. If you want to take it.
Oh,
from there.
okay. All right, I guess so. So this movie is big enough for one podcast all by itself. And why did you feel compelled to talk about it on Unwatchable?
I feel very defensive of this film. I have had multiple conversations about it, mostly with like my late night bar guests. When I talk about Showgirls, I have such respect for the stories, all the very different stories of women and female empowerment or female agency and identity throughout the film, as well as I definitely think the satire of like American consumerism and sexuality and versus sensuality, and I've defended it so vehemently from mostly men. No offense to anyone listening, but I've defended it from men who claim that it's a bad movie. They say, "Isn't that a bad movie?" Or I remember one barfly in particular said that he didn't watch the movie for the right reasons. So I was curious what he meant by that. Of course, he was watching it
Dear.
he was watching it for the like pornographic element to it, as it is an NC-17 film. But all of that aside, I just think that this is a big and beautiful and very moving movie. I enjoy I mean it's like weirdly poetic too, beyond like it's not just like quotable, but there are some lines that just have this sort of um like like Shakespearean quality to, the turn of phrase that I just really enjoy. And I like how meandering it is. It's a really big movie. It's a long one. It's an epic, but I just think that it like overflows with message and meaning. And I think a lot of that gets lost in the, overt sexuality. And then people are distracted by it. And then they're also like so turned off by maybe like how turned on they are like by the film. So just a lot. And I always want to talk about it. I have personal writing on it. I've talked about it on Cinematary before, and I can never get enough of it, and I never feel like I've said enough about it. So I'm
Now,
really
was
excited.
this? Have you always felt this way? Was this a movie that you had seen like a long time ago, or many times? Have your feelings evolved? Because, like I was saying in the introduction, there's been so many different lives of this movie. Of maybe people who didn't appreciate it at first, did appreciate it later. I don't know. We might all be a little bit too young to remember the whole the thick of it as it would have been culturally when it first came out, and because it did take a little while for it to find its footing. So I guess I'm just curious: did this hit you right away with that? Were you ever blinded by the reputation?
So I actually, the first I heard about it was this Instagram personality that I follow. I followed her from Tumblr to Instagram, and our tastes aesthetically very much aligned. And she had posted about how much she enjoyed Showgirls, and I had never heard of it. And when I saw that the local movie theater here in Knoxville, Central Cinema, was showing it, I thought, okay, well, I'll go check it out. Um, and I, I don't want to give too much credit to like an Instagram story for saying that it like primed me for what I was about to see, but I had an idea. I just thought it was about a girl that wants to dance and she strips in Vegas. Like I thought it was just purely that. I didn't know anything else about that. And I was, interested to see that, sort of that industry and that work portrayed on film. And I also have this like, weird nostalgic feeling for Las Vegas, even though I've never been. I just think, aesthetically and by reputation, Las Vegas is cool and interesting. And I wonder like what kind of stories and what kind of lives, exist out there. But when I saw it, this was probably about going on 4 or 5 years now. And I mean, like immediately, I just thought, wow, this is what movies are meant to be. Just like a huge, like swing for the fences, just all glitz, all glamour, beautiful people on screen doing beautiful things. And,
Huge performances.
huge, like energetic, like frantic, like, performances that I think in any other film would definitely feel out of place, but I do think that they all sit really well within this story. And I mean, the whole thing is a Las Vegas floor show experience, the whole film itself. But I liked it immediately, and I don't, and it's hard to put my finger exactly on why I liked it so much, but I just was so like blown away by something so I think garish and like outlandish that just really appealed to me. And just from there, it's just like lived in my mind as this like perfect, like imperfectly perfect, but like perfect in the sense that it's a complete story. Like it doesn't leave anything up to any, speculation. I feel like it's, a complete story in that sense. So then completeness as perfection. Um, it just it just really worked for me. And then I saw it again when Criterion had their Razzies collection, and that was when I learned that it won Worst Picture at the Razzies, and like
I think
amongst
it
other.
swept. It swept
It's
that year.
like I had no idea. Like I never like looked into it, and I didn't think
Oh,
like I didn't know. I just I was just like, wow, yeah, this is like so I really like Russ Meyer's movies, and so I wonder if like I'm primed, for that sort of sensibility and aesthetic like on screen. So I'm like, that just works. And then to find out that it swept the Razzies, I was like, oh, were we watching the same movie? And then I learned that it was censored for TV, and they, digitally restored clothing to some of them. Like it's just always been this like perfect, fun, pleasurable experience. I don't even want to say guilty pleasure. I don't feel
I do
guilty
think,
watching it.
yeah, like your presentation, like how it comes to you is kind of important in some ways. I think it's definitely colored some audiences in their like how to approach it. I do think like even from interviews I've seen with the actress who plays the main character, Nomi, who's like, you know, the stripper going to the big city trying to make it and is clearly like has a mysterious past.
Elizabeth Berkley.
Elizabeth Berkley. Even she talks about it in this way, like in all her interviews I found, is like this leading up to like, I really thought it was going to be good and we all thought it was great and it was all wonderful and I had the most amazing time and I loved the story and I loved the character. And then I saw the reviews and then it seems like she is, and probably lots of audience members are like buying into this whole Razzie world, this whole idea that surely you must be wrong if the culture of film critics saw it this way. And it was sort of memed as this crazy car crash of some sort. And I know, it definitely had these different lives of first being this, can't believe this, like critical, like disappointment and everything. And then it had like this little college kind of scene from what I've read where it was like funny to have a Showgirls party where you would like laugh about it with your friends, like, oh, what a stupid movie. And only recently have we gotten to the point where
just so you know, we just lost you there for a couple seconds, Seth.
I guess I'm gonna try and leave, I guess, and come back.
I wonder if I should start a new recording if we do that. I wish that Tony was here to advise me.
Like, I know I'm sitting in a different spot than I usually do. That could be it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, why don't we just, if it happens again, let's try that. But right now, like you popped up in a new box, everything seems fine.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what I was saying now.
You were talking about the college culture of this like midnight movie.
Yeah. Okay, so it seems like there was a second life for the movie after the initial car crash of it all, where it was really funny to be ironic about Showgirls, and they had like Showgirls parties in college and stuff like that, where you would just make fun of it and laugh at it. And then
like The Room or Rocky Horror.
Yeah. And then it seems like it gained, like some of those followers actually stopped laughing and started seeing it as like, no, this is like wonderful actually. And this is like a deep, if anything, like not camp, but realistic performance that a lot of these characters are doing, or whatever it is, seeing it through whatever lens as being deep.
Well, that's the question. And I don't think it's necessarily settled with any consensus still. And we're going to talk about all the different ways that you could look at this movie, because you have one line, which is that it is just unintentionally poor, or that it is intentionally campy, or further yet, it's actually a brilliant satire, or some combination of some ratio of all three, or, you know, some combination of them. So, and I want to touch on all the different ways that you could look at it. But obviously, we've been spending a lot of time talking about like the movie's reputation. So I want to make sure we get like the history out there for everybody, that this came out in 1995. And at this point, Paul Verhoeven, he was known at first, you know, in the United States, at least, he's a Dutch filmmaker for sci-fi satires like RoboCop or Total Recall, which I'm not sure that counts as a satire, but Starship Troopers definitely does, which he made after this. But really, this is coming off of the success of Basic Instinct, where he had kind of dipped his toe into the erotic thriller. And so this is a specific kind of mode that he kind of works in. And he again reteamed with the screenwriter from Basic Instinct, Joe Esteras, who's an interesting character I have some thoughts about. But they kind of were using that as a launching pad to do what at the time was the first and still only wide release NC-17 movie, which may not seem like a big deal now, but, you know, back before streaming services and, you know, your only access to movies was a theater or a video store. Usually neither one of them would play or stock NC-17 movies. There'd be limitations on how you could advertise it, or like which networks and after what certain time of night they would show ads for it. So that at least must have contributed to the fact that out of its $45 million budget, it didn't even make the money back. So it was seen as a big commercial flop as well as the reviews being horrible. That's when it swept the raspberries. And unfortunately, it seemed like Elizabeth Berkley kind of bore the brunt of that, as far as, which I do think is very kind of tragic and unfair. That these other people went on to continue making more movies, and she was like more or less blacklisted after this. That's all pre what Seth was talking about with it getting this revival as a midnight movie. And apparently it made like $100 million just in video rentals, which kind of makes me wonder, the way that they were trying to sell the movie was, this is going to be so scintillating and extreme, that maybe we were too far past the era where people wanted to enjoy movies in a pornographic sense in a theater. And it wasn't until it came home, like, that people wanted to go grab that VHS, and it became this thing.
Well, I know it was
secretly
advertised in like in men's magazines and stuff like that. And it's like, was just like the people trying to make money off this thing, which is like, how do we advertise this NC-17 movie that we're probably going to lose money on, because you're very limited in the United States with an NC-17. And I remember them, like, from what I've seen, they tried advertising from that angle of it being this like, bring your buds, it's going to be a real sexy time, and which like Paul Verhoeven like kicked back against these things, saying that like, no, it's a morality tale. And I'm sure they laughed in his face, right? Because especially back then, these things were just so they just weren't done, I feel like, in the way that they are now. Like with something like a Nora would like is not such a hard sell. I mean, for some people, unfortunately, it still is. Like I found, like with Honora, it was just like people just can't buy this as being a real drama if there is tits involved or something. But yeah,
I think that's a really good point. I mean, I can't speak to anything to do with the marketing or anything. It so missed me. I didn't come to this until it was featured as like a cool sort of art house culty movie at the Independent Picture House, and like that seemed very exciting to me. But I mean that that thinking that like it does so much better in like the home movie world, where like pornography had that second life out of pornographic theaters into direct to your house from the comfort of your own couch. You can enjoy something so sinful that you feel like you couldn't visit in a theater. But I don't know.
I was like caught in that crossfire, kind of like before like internet pornography or whatever. I think anything like this was scooped up, unfortunately, by guys of that sort as being like, whoa, look at this, like, can't believe it. And like, I'm sure they were kind of met like, there's a story, what's going on, what is this?
Yeah, and the plot of the movie is a familiar one. It's a rise and fall, like, showbiz story with somebody trying to break into the business, which except that they're starting out like in kind of sleazy strip clubs and then moving up to being a showgirl in Vegas. So it's kind of a different rung on the ladder. But for anyone just who hasn't seen the movie, I mean, that's pretty much what it goes into this. If you've seen movies like that where you have someone who's climbing the ladder, they're being betrayed by people or exploited by people higher up. They in turn betray them and become the exploiter at certain moments. But I mean, let's start them with, I mean, are neither of you buying that this is deliberate campiness? Is this a totally straight-faced drama? Do you think those two things can coexist? Where's everybody landing on that aspect of this?
I do think that it is very sincere. The aspects of camp, I think, are, they're like here and there, but more sporadic. I am such a, I believe in the sentimental, and I believe in the honest and the genuine. And I think that if you approach that film with like a pure heart and like wanting to, engage with whatever story is there, you'll find it. So for me, the genuine story and like the thread of honesty throughout. I definitely latch on to like the hero's journey of like this rise and fall action of climbing the ladders, or climbing the stairs from the dressing room up to the stage. I also think about how this film is kind of asking you, like, well, what's really the difference here in the dancing that Nomi does, where, dancing at the strip club versus dancing on the Vegas Strip? Like, what exactly is the difference here? Why is one considered low and one considered high? And I think that the film also kind of, um, by extension asks you that, like what is so, you know, classless and tasteless about this film when like sexuality and nudity exists in other highbrow art films. I latched on to all of the different women and the struggles that they are, working through, being exploited and trying to keep their head above water, doing anything that they can, like in this economy, to have a life, and especially like a creative life. I think that all of these women want to be dancers. They are creatives. They, want to exist and create something beautiful and be a part of something beautiful. Um so so I see camp like here and there. I mostly see camp. I think that the men are kind of campy because they seem like caricatures, whereas the women feel like real, characters with agency, or that suffer conflict and consequences. But I when I saw this, I couldn't see anything to make fun of. I don't see where there's like anything so ridiculous or that is just so unbelievable that it's worthy of any sort of ridicule.
Yeah, I feel like so much of that comes from audiences, at least some of the audience probably coming from a place of just they see sexuality, especially coming from a woman, and they don't know what to do with it. There's something uncomfortable about it, so they have to push back against it. And further from that, there is like the whole idea of the campiness, I feel like gets a little overblown in the fandom with this movie. I know that there is, that Paul Verhoeven has spoken about it being in a mode that was maybe misunderstood as being like hyperbolic, which I don't think he's talking about anything like too complicated there. We're not talking about like David Lynch or something. Like it's not another world. It's just like, have you seen a American movie before? Like, which are heightened and like people don't exactly act this way, but there's an emotional truth to all of it. Which for me, yeah, the first time I saw this movie, I definitely was like coming from that angle because I had read about it being this like camp masterpiece or something. I was trying really hard to like do all this camp math, understand like, oh, this is like they must have had this long discussion of how to like act in this bizarre way. And when I watched it again, I just think it's kind of like bullshit a little bit, that it is just like it's just big poppy entertainment kind of, but also the like Nomi, the main character, is believable to me, and a lot of these characters are believable to me. I think like someone who would come along and be like, no one would ever act like this is just like kind of deluding themselves or doesn't get out much. It's just like there are women, and besides women, people that are in like desperate like mindsets and who have been harmed, who act like this and who are like kind of volatile like this, and they explode and they throw their French fries everywhere, right? Like for good reason.
A lot of French fry throwing.
That's where I land. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Marcus?
Well, so I'm the only one of us who just saw this for the first time the other night when we watched this. So I definitely had a blank slate going in. And I think that we do agree on this not really working as a satire, which I've seen that argument made from a lot of people, that it kind of does something similar to what Starship Troopers does, which is take a familiar plot and amping up, the excess and the ridiculousness of it until it kind of ends up commenting on its own tropes, which in the case of Starship Troopers is about fascism. Of course, Showgirls is about like the show business journey. And I think that works at Starship Troopers because that's actually taking a relatively straightforward script and just kind of nudging it into satire with directorial choices. Because those fascist undertones are kind of inherent to the genre that it's in, like of military action movies.
Yeah, same with RoboCop.
Right. And here, I think that it just kind of it transposes a melodrama that again is familiar, but just to a different setting, and it does amp up the nudity and the vulgarity. But ultimately, I agree that it's just as earnest as those other movies that it's um, kind of playing on in that same tradition of. So I think the issue for me is that we're movies like A Star Is Born or All About Eve are ones that get cited a lot that come along with this. Like those movies are plenty cynical. Like they're every bit as cynical and realistic about like the exploitation of women in show business as this movie is. So I'm not sure if this accomplishes much as far as revitalizing that template, and certainly not subverting it just by kind of changing the setting. And I think maybe that's where people do have problems with the script or the dialogue or the characterization, that stuff does matter a little bit more because it's not really doing something that's in a satirical mode or even a campy mode where that would be a little more forgivable. And I think my main thing is kind of with the screenwriter here. So Joe Esteras, who did Basic Instinct, I don't really feel, not only is he not a satirist, I don't think he has a great feel like for comedy or for heavy drama. And so for me, this movie is kind of like a battle between Paul Verhoeven, who's like the perfect director for this kind of material, and everything that works here is because of his sensibility. And he's kind of stuck with a writer who is not very funny, kind of an asshole in real life. I think that's my biggest hurdle for me is like, I don't think he came up with a script that really was worthy of maybe what some of the actors and Paul Verhoeven were. But that's kind of opening up. Was there not any moments like in the dialogue or something where it was just kind of like, that's just not like a great line? Because there was stuff that stuck out in this throughout for me where I was like, well, if this isn't being campy, there's kind of an issue here.
Yeah, I think it's inconsistent, right? What I can feel here and there. I think there are moments where maybe he was swinging for some sort of campiness and buying those lines by leaning into them, whether it's Verhoeven or the screenwriter. Like it must be weird that they don't come on you here, or whatever that line is, where the sleazy strip club owner comes.
Al, what he says to her, and like how Al and I forget her name, that's like the big mama type character that takes care of everyone. They pretend to be her parents. Like that's that's already a difficult relationship. But I don't know.
It's a bit of an ask, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that, I mean, I had said in my introduction that like I enjoy some of the writing because I think that it gives it that cultish quality, the lines that you can quote, like "Thanks, it's Versace," or how Al, again, the strip club owner, keeps calling the new dancer Hope, saying they don't want to fuck a penny. They want to fuck Hope. They want to, we're a high class joint. They want to fuck Tiffany.
Yeah, I dig that. Yeah.
I enjoyed that as, a perhaps like a potential thesis statement, like for this movie, which is like, fuck Hope, like, but also fuck it, like all the different, nuances to that sort of phrasing and, to the action and, everything that comes along with that word. I think that those aspects, or those lines in particular, I think that those really work. And I think that like the crassness of the language, I think is also like fairly spot on, like given this line of work that they're in, where like, if they're selling sex, then that's also the language that they speak to each other in, but also in a way that's like sometimes like clinical or, not so degrading, but it just is like their reality. Like this is the language that we speak. But I guess campy in the sense that it's memorable, but I don't know. I really
But maybe not an intention.
yeah, maybe not intentionally meant to be satirical. Like I find like other aspects satirical, like Nomi's obsession like with potato chips, how there's like no nutritional value or sustenance to it, and like this being like a trashy movie with like no nutritional value or something to it. Like maybe that but the dialogue just it all I don't know. There's like it's all very meaty, something to sort of like pick apart.
For me, they wind up working because these aren't supposed to be like the most smart or charming people you've ever met, right? Which
Right.
I think sometimes in even like Scorsese movies, as much as I love them, sometimes it is, even if they are like the street smart guy, he still creates this like he's dealing with characters that are supposed to like totally swoon you and bring you in. I think these kind of do work as being kind of boneheaded a little bit, even if you are supposed to like these characters or they're clearly damaged, so they don't actually have like this poetic diatribe or something. I don't know, that winds up working for me.
Yeah, and it kind of, I guess it depends how you look at it too, because I do think if you're being uncharitable and just looking at the screenplay and who wrote it, that a lot of this could seem like this. There are elements of it that seem like this could be a guy, or maybe even like a kind of juvenile guy's like idea of what all of this stuff looks like and how they talk backstage about tits and snatch like constantly.
See, this was something I was thinking about, yeah.
Yeah, where there is it almost is like I could see it almost appealing to a teenage boy in that way of it is like a fantasy backstage as well as it is like in the as what we're seeing out there that's all artificial. That's there's a lot of humor that's like where the monkeys break in and they're like, oh, the monkeys are in
I
here
love
again,
that.
and there's
Oh
a
my
close up of the
God.
monkey like putting on one of the girls' lipstick, or a clearly topless girl in the same shot with children like yelling at them to shut the fuck up and scandalizing them. I don't know. A lot of the humor didn't really land for me. That seemed to be just like face value, what just trying to be funny. But I do think maybe there is a bigger thing here of it not being as like gritty and showing you like what it's actually like getting down to the bone. It's undermined a bit by this idea of almost being written by somebody who's out of touch with what that world would actually be like. Or maybe that's not an issue.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I do think there's an element of fantasy to this movie that I don't think rubs me the wrong way necessarily. It definitely not, I don't know, it's not in some vein like Larry Clark or some kind of like exploitative, like this is the dark reality of these tough situations, or even again to go back to like what's his face who did Honora and
Sean
Tangerine,
Baker.
like
Sean Baker.
yeah, in a way I can imagine him loving this movie, but his movies being definitely while still having some glitz and some exaggeration, being closer to like having those cold reality moments, which I feel like this doesn't so much, even at its worst moments of like there's a sexual assault in it. Even that feels a little heightened in movie land, which again, I think is just like okay for me. It's just like a thing that I see in movies. I guess I just wouldn't agree with the people that are saying that this is like visually and on top to bottom like realistic or visually like intentionally campy. It's somewhere in the middle for me. Yeah.
Okay, and I like how you brought up Sean Baker too, because I could see like Mikey Madsen, it's saying doing like the lead in this role and maybe being just as brash and lively and kind of out of control as Elizabeth Berkley gets sometimes. So I would like to talk about Elizabeth Berkley in this because, like we said, she bore like a lot of the brunt, when this movie first came out. And of course, me being kind of the representative of the naysayers here, I don't think she's terrible. I do think there is
Happy to
kind of a
have you.
leading woman problem here, though. And it's mainly in comparison to some of the other performances where I do see, like with Gina Gershon's character, there is a very stylized kind of artificiality to it that works. And Kyle MacLachlan definitely kind of finds the right register. And I do feel maybe there was some sort of like not directing her in the right way, where it, instead of it seeming like it was heightened or stylized, it was a little more like she's just always kind of shouting too much or abruptly, throwing food in the air or kicking somebody and running away. It does seem to me like there was something missing from the heart of this with that performance. Like, later on in the movie when her past comes out, that's something that perhaps a better actor could have like really dug into or made more apparent throughout the movie if you just want to drop, say Honora into that situation and kind of imagine maybe how differently that would have unfolded, even if she was still going big. But this is, your guys' opportunity to counter me on Elizabeth Berkley if you so desire.
Well, I'd
Grace?
like to. I would like
Yeah.
to. So going back to her like bearing the brunt for this film being like such a flop, I think, it has a lot to do with her coming off of Saved by the Bell and as this like high schooler and then immediately, jumping into NC-17 territory. I think that was like you know, pretty disruptive and like a big, shift in her career that I think people weren't really ready for it. And then to see her play at being a dancer of this sort, whether she's, at the Cheetah or at the Stardust doing Goddess, that's also like it's a very bold choice. I think that she works really well. I love watching her dance. Um, for good or for bad, I like the energy, this like frantic, um, wildfire. She just lights up and tears up any stage that she's on. So she makes a good spectacle. She makes like a good, uh, you know, front and center stage. Um, all eyes on her. I think she manages that really well. And then those, high highs and then like even the kind of high lows, where she's like sad or, upset or quiet. Um, I think that those work too because there is something a little, there's still something like a little childish, still a little juvenile, like very petulant. She's a very petulant um, young lady and one that like maybe exists in some sort of form of arrested development as she was never able to like fully mature, having her youth snatched away from her. When we get to her tragic backstory of like being exploited and having to turn to sex work as like a young girl to survive. So it's like that sort of perspective on Nomi to me made the rest of the film make sense, but I still really enjoyed that. Like, I liked how loud she was, how brash she was in comparison to Gina Gershon's almost like feline performance, the way she sort of saunters into everything hips first. I think that is countered pretty well. Like, nobody matches Nomi's energy, and she burns too bright, and, stars that burn the brightest die the. I don't really know like the physics behind it, but bright stars burn and die out pretty quick, like
I'm not a scientist.
I'm not a scientist, I'm not even a pseudoscientist, but she just burns so bright and you wonder where, when is she going to burn out? Um, but having no one that matches her throughout the film sets her apart, and then everybody is able to kind of fill in spaces that she leaves open. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like the word intention keeps on coming up with this movie, and I don't I don't always know like how useful it is. They keep on being like how was she directed? What was she told? What was the intention with it? For me, what comes out either way is something that winds up feeling real. Like as I've said before, just like I believe that this girl is out there, and I feel like I've maybe even met people that are a little like this, who have tough backgrounds and who are like gonna go into these situations with such like intensity and like the other thing is appetite that she has, like in a way that is almost like kind of scary. Like she's like any chance she gets, any angle she gets, she's going to grab it and push it. And like dancing is just one of her angles, and we can see that rather, no pun intended, nakedly, that she is like, this is a thing that I can do, and I can do better than some people, and I can get $500 for a lap dance. And like she just is really like latching on to that like for dear life, even though it looks like she's having fun or something. There's a real, like, I don't know, pretty palpable line of stress and I don't know, I don't know, a person who's in trouble and kind of begging for help in some sort of way, but not ready to do so. Which again just points to like, I guess I do just see her performance as being very, very realistic for me, as much as it blows up in kind of crazy ways sometimes and maybe knocks up against the campier characters. I don't know.
Speaking of her dancing, I kept kind of waiting for a sign that maybe the film was making kind of a deliberate joke out of like everyone always being, sitting there kind of stunned, like, oh my God, can you believe this girl? I mean, when to me, like, they mentioned the way that she does dance is like so intense, it's almost comical. Like it's sometimes more like watching like a military drill or something. Like she never seems like the most natural or alluring person on the stage of all the other people that she's blowing away. And I was kind of wondering, like, if I don't know, I could see somebody arguing that the film was like intentionally doing that, but I'm not sure. I really
that it wasn't
buy
like that it wasn't very like sultry or like
right.
she's like a lot of hard angles with like
Yes,
staccato, like hit,
like trying
Can't not see her.
so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's her whole mode.
To literally like grab you by the throat, like
right.
Look
Which
at
like
me.
actual like I don't know, people who would be like looking for, to hire dancers or to be like judging dancing would be like, holy crap, girl. This is like she would get kicked off of So You Think You Can Dance or something.
Maybe.
For
Or
that.
maybe,
and just the way that everyone everyone reacts to it, like, oh my God, you've got to see this talent. And I don't know.
I don't know. I just wind up buying it. Maybe it's my own.
It's like nothing you've ever seen before. And I think that that's also kind of a good angle. Like, I've never seen anybody dance like this. I got to keep watching. But,
well, it almost always doubles too. It almost always doubles as like a bad thing too. Because quite often when she is accepted by people, like they all just want, is like they're readying to fuck her basically, right? Like whether it's the strip club owner or it's the like Kyle MacLachlan or even Crystal, they're all positioning her and saying yes to her because they all are also sexually attracted to her and like in a real way of like trying to position themselves to actually physically do that and consummate. Which to me does ring like kind of with the whole thing that it's trying to talk about.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I just wanted to agree with you on that and say that it's like, that's got to be so upsetting. Like, to think that you have this gift, this talent, or, some sort of skill beyond selling your body in such a way. And people seem to sort of be like agreeing with you and going along with that. But really, it's like, no, you're really only good for this one thing. That's gotta, I just think about Nomi and just think about like how painful and like damaging um, that discovery would be when she has it or as she has it, that you really are only good for just the one thing. You're just a body to exploit, and you're not a talent and you're not a creative. That I can't imagine how painful that would be. And then that's why she like
Yeah.
fights so hard for that, I think.
Yeah, that push and pull of like she keeps on like in 1 minute it is dancing and the next minute she's reminded that like what are you simulating? You are simulating sex, and it's this whole like it all feeds into itself in this way that is not condemning to like what she's doing, but depends on who she's talking to where it might end up. Yeah.
Well, that's another question, which is this movie sexy? Is it trying to be erotic and sexy? Because I think if you do find, and I personally think that it is. But even for say a non-heterosexual male, watching this,
Let's say that there would be a host to a podcast who is
but I would assume, though, if even if you were, say the red-blooded heterosexual male going in to watch this movie, that eventually an overload would be kicking in. Because, I mean, this is like wall to wall. I've probably never seen so many bare breasts like for this duration in a non like pornographic or maybe like European art house film. And, I would imagine that some people would argue that that's intentional, that is trying to wear you down. But I do think also there's scenes like the pool sex scene with Kyle MacLachlan where it's not in front of an audience or anything, and it really does just seem like it's trying to be an erotic sex scene where once again she is just like working him like a power washer. And
which well, I don't know. I'm probably the best we have. I'm a bisexual male on the podcast, so I can assure you that I was not tired of seeing what I was seeing necessarily. I will admit that part of me was not sad.
Just
and I don't
every
know.
Scene begins with the breasts coming out, and then more breasts coming in, and then it's kind of that for like 2 hours.
It's that, and it's also giving me a wonderful layered movie. So I'm doing great. And I mean, the pool scene is a great thing to talk about because it's like now it's not even choreography, but that's I'm sure you saw that aspect of it, that it is exactly the same moves that she's doing at the lap dance in the early part of the movie for him. Yeah, he's exactly just the same as the scene before, and it's just now they're actually have their clothes off and they're fucking, which I think is like it's a good use of that scene, which could have just very easily been like, oh, okay, finally we're just getting sex, we can just watch them fuck, right? But no, there's like something actually rhyming there, which is cool.
Like another performance. And then that also kind of, so I get, I haven't figured out where I'm at, I guess, but I guess as in like, am I a red-blooded heterosexual male? Like, we don't have to get into that, but it all works for me, and I do feel as though that this is like a very sexy film, but I find that it's not sexy. Like her sex with Kyle MacLachlan, that's not. I mean, like it was fun, but I didn't find that very, sexy or exciting or arousing. But I think that the scenes between Nomi and Crystal are much more like palpably like sexual and sensual when they share the stage together or when they're having dinner together and Crystal baptizes her. I think even like there are
crazy,
like that's the best. That's my favorite scene in the entire film. And I even think that like some aspects of like Nomi's relationship with Molly, as platonic as it is, there is like real love and tenderness there that is then I think in turn like pretty sexy. Like and I'm getting lost here in like the whole sexuality of the film, but I do think
I also like the relationship with the the DIY dance guy. I forget his name, but
James.
That's like I like their little interaction and stuff. It almost seems like they could have something real, but they don't.
But they don't. They could have had something, and like thank goodness for like her body's like biology that like actually turned him off from going any further with her. That was something that I
Oh
was
well, he
thinking
was
about when
down, but
he, well, like you think he was down, like even though she was,
he said he.
you know,
I think he the quote is I got towels
oh yeah,
in that
that's
scene,
right.
but she's not down because it's part of it is I think she catches herself. She's about to do what she eventually does to Kyle MacLachlan, which is to give herself in that way, and maybe she's not ready to do so. I was trying to read that scene in conversation with that because
Yeah.
the Kyle MacLachlan is like a giving over of a performance rather than an actual like real act, which it seems like she actually likes him maybe, so she wants to wait. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, I didn't follow how it seemed like she was rejecting his advances and like almost being insulted by them. And then she comes back and he's with another woman and she takes that as like a great betrayal.
but that's just like
didn't seem to track to me.
Nomi's wild and she's like inconsistent. I don't know. She's crass.
Well,
She's good.
I
I was
guess.
thinking about how like
And no, I mean
you
that
know,
does track. How does that not track? Yeah.
I mean, there's inconsistently written and then there's human inconsistency. And I don't know. I didn't really see like that kind of grasp on her.
Well, see, this
her
is again like the
character.
toss up with like intention versus like just what I see, which like just winds up being believable that a person would act in this way that like on paper, yeah, I could accuse you of being inconsistent and kind of being immature. That's what she's doing.
well, I thought it was more that like she was upset that like I think she took it as like, oh, so because I didn't fuck you, you like gave my part to this other girl who clearly did and is also now pregnant. And like her biology, like
Right.
being that she was menstruating, that like it stalled out what could have been like an inevitability for Nomi. Like that Penny, she could have just as easily have been in Penny's place, where she took a chance on this guy who says that he has a dance part for her and only she can do it and it's only yours and there's no one else who can do it like you. And then you sleep together, you're pregnant, you stuck with him. And I don't think it was like a great betrayal that like he's with Penny. It's just that like I guess I really am just so replaceable. I'm just a body just for, whatever delights, you as the male would like to, impose upon me. And I think that was the ultimate betrayal of like, I can't get this part in this show, but I could have had something with you that could have been something like something bigger. And then it's just like, you just give it to whoever. You just like, there's no loyalty there.
Now that part makes more sense to me. That comes up a little bit later with the pregnancy and her getting the part and everything. So that stuff does make that work better for me. Although I don't know, did you guys really get much out of like his character and that whole storyline? Because that really kind of registered as kind of dead weight to me.
Oh.
That's on my list of things that I wish I could have gotten more of. Because yeah, I do love this movie, but I do have like a list of things that I could have made me love it more, and that's one of them. I think he could have gotten a little better of an arc than just like he knocked up a girl and now like it also doesn't track fully. I don't know. Yeah, I just didn't buy that they had like a real thing going on, and then they kind of act like they had a real thing going on in the last scene together.
By the way, I kept thinking, I recognize this guy from something, and it turns out what I was thinking of was Jaguar owner from Speed.
Whoa.
Just in case anyone was wondering. That's what I know this guy from.
The Jaguar guy.
Yeah. Good
his
catch.
car's always getting fucked up and stuff. I mean, I had to look that up afterwards, but I knew I could see something with him.
Oh.
But that's trivia.
That's good trivia.
But I think like there's a similar. Sorry, were you going to say something about him?
Oh, I think that he works as like a man that is outside of the industry as a dancer. She sees him as like a capital D dancer. He's not a strip club owner. He's not a Vegas floor show manager. He's not the, mean dance instructor that she interacts with. Like he seems so outside this world, and like to meet him like in a dance club where she's already dancing, but it's not for like an audition and he dances with her, that like they do have like a connection in that he tries to keep up with her and her creativity, her, emotional explosion that is her dance style. So I do think that like his story works. And then him, working as a valet, parking people's expensive cars at the club, that's a good place for him to be, where it's like it's just a day job, just anything that I can do, but to still maintain loyalty and creative control over my art form in a way that me are having to sacrifice, because what you're doing in there, like he says, you're fucking them without fucking them. Like, he seems to like cut right through the bullshit, so to speak, of this exploitive industry while still being exploited by it as well. And then he eventually does what they all do and takes advantage of and ruins this poor penny girl's life. But I do think that they had a real connection, and I do think that his storyline works well. I guess I could have seen a little bit more of him, but I definitely couldn't have seen any less of him. If we saw less of him, we would just have to get rid of it completely. But I think it's pretty, well worked out, well balanced.
Well, and the other person I was going to bring up, her roommate character, if you can call her a character, is kind of going to lead us, I think, into maybe the latter like act of this movie. So where I think things take like a very grim turn, and I think it starts with this roommate character who, given what we get from her throughout the movie, ends up by the end seeming like she just kind of exists there so that she can be the victim of a sexual assault and kind of turn the movie into this rape revenge thing at the end. And I'm curious how you think all that fits in, because it seemed a little half-assed to me, this kind of transformation that Elizabeth Berkley's character makes to getting like revenge and then just kind of taken off in the end. And that's something where maybe if this had really gone for it into like Miss 45 territory or something, that maybe that's where things would have really gotten interesting for me, especially with Paul Verhoeven being the one behind this. But as it is, I don't know. I feel like this movie is too long, and it really does get to be kind of a bummer in those last parts where, we have the betrayals, we have Kyle MacLachlan, to me, kind of becoming like a stock, not very interesting villain and not even really getting to have much fun with his performance throughout the movie. And then we have this really nasty rape scene and kind of unlikely revenge. And then the movie just kind of ends like after that with her like running away before we get a cute little callback at the very end. So I'm wondering if you guys think this last section of the movie fits in with what came before.
Yeah, I mean, this is the point where I can kind of start to lose a little steam for sure, because I really love the front end of this, and it is so meandering and it doesn't give a fuck. Like, it just goes off on tangents and things, and I love that. But I think I don't know if I would trade that necessarily for what I'm about to propose, but like, yeah, I think what might have been like a better use of its time is setting up like a sort of like the rape scene happens in like the middle of the movie, and then the latter half like actually has some time and some room to deal with like the revenge, and that's like the trigger to cause her to understand that like see all the holes and cracks in the world around her and everything like that, and like the revenge can be bigger, more plotted out and things. Because that did feel like they still like it being there. I think the fact that all of this culminates in like female friendship and trying to like band together and survive together, like being like what actually matters to her, is kind of great. And what makes her like quote unquote throw it all away, even though it's like not worth her keeping it. in the end. I think it just needed more room to breathe, and there's not enough room unless they added an hour to this movie, I think.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, and I've never really thought of it like that. For me, I while the rape was it felt like at first very tonally different, so upsetting, very just super I mean, almost indescribable. I mean, you watch it and you're kind of I don't know, like left breathless by it, but I don't think that it's so out of place in the industry because I do feel like I was constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop with this being such a volatile and dangerous industry where you're constantly reminded that these women are taken advantage of in, XYZ fashion, that like
Oh, totally.
that you're kind of like, and then is there going to be the big one, like the big, upsetting and like nasty reality of like what it means to be an exploited woman in sex work? Like, I don't want to say that like it seems like so sweeping to say like rape is just to be expected in the sex worker industry because like that is such a that feels really messy to say. I don't really have any basis to ground that with, but it did kind of seem like the film was like leading up to that exploitation, like how you have to, in order to have a job you have to sleep with the boss, like so that's already non-consensual. Then how like there's consistent power imbalances from male boss to female dancer, and so there's something coercive about the eventual sexual exchange for favors. So then this being one, um, I think it's I okay, I think that it is so upsetting because it's against Molly, who has nothing to do with the actual dancing as a seamstress. She's so removed from it. But then I think it does a good job of saying that like in this industry, this entertainment industry where like the men are up top and they're the women who are sort of like fuel for the fire that keep this sort of machine going. You're going to have casualties that are, sort of on the fringes of it, that they can literally have anyone they want, not just the women that are directly in front of them that are, paid for, you know, by their work on this show, but anybody that gets their paycheck signed by Kyle MacLachlan is like fair game. They're in this industry. So I think that that's what makes it so upsetting. Molly has nothing to do with it, but I don't think that it's out of place. It does feel hinted at or like sort of expected. Um, but Seth, I do agree with you. It probably would have been a lot better in the middle because I also would have liked for her to spend more time, reconnecting with Molly and then also reconnecting with Crystal because Crystal seemed to really understand and forgive her. But then her rape revenge seems equally as like passionate and impulsive as like Naomi has been the entire film. Like as
Mhm.
in the moment, I'm gonna beat the hell out of this guy for what he did. I'm gonna find him. I don't care. I'm not gonna think beyond that. What I want. That's that one thing that I want, which is to hurt the man that hurt someone I love so much, and just leave it at that. And no real thought for like the consequences of our own actions. But I do think that's a good point. Like if it had more time, then there could have been more of
Mhm.
like an end to it, some sort of
Because
conclusion.
then it does feel like she gets that, and then she's just done like with all of Vegas and every part of it because it does seem like it's all connected to this event. Which yeah, it's just like that's a big movement from where she was, sort of. Which I guess Kyle MacLachlan's like betrayal was like part of it too, or like her seeing through that. And then she's pretty much done and we're back in like a cyclical place. It's one of those kind of endings where she's puts her thumb back up like we saw her at the beginning, and she even, hitches the same ride with the same Elvis looking dude from the beginning of the movie, and like it's like, here we go again. Although they're on their way to Los Angeles, so you're like, oh,
it's
show
then
business.
It's like Harvey Weinstein and that sort of like exploitive men and entertainment industry that she's gonna perhaps dip her toe in there as well.
Which there is a Showgirls 2. Have you seen Showgirls 2?
Pennies from Heaven.
I have not seen it.
I have not seen it.
Wonderful title.
I
saw
am
a clip
very
that Seth
curious.
just sent me that was
it's very
holy crap.
kind of DIY for sure. It kind of looks like Inland Empire cameras.
It like literally looks like well, actually it looks worse than The Room, but it looks as bad as The Room.
Yes, I'm kind of excited. I want to see it. It's also like 125 minutes, which is pretty long for a movie of that sort. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a moratorium on that for this. A little break for this podcast. This one was long enough.
But
oh my Lord.
It just goes round and round.
Well,
I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to think. What else do we need to say about Showgirls? There's lots to say about.
Can we talk about Crystal Connors? I want to talk a little about Crystal Connors, and
yeah,
to call to mind what you just said about like round and round, because there's always someone younger and hungrier coming right down those stairs just behind you, or coming right up those stairs just behind you. And so, if Nomi Malone pushed Crystal Connors down the stairs to then be Nomi Goddess, who did Crystal Connors push down the stairs to be Crystal Goddess? I think Gina Gershon, phenomenal in this, beautiful to look at. She's acting on a totally like other level. I think she's like tonally pitch perfect. I think her abs are the best accessory. I think she's so fashionable. I also enjoy the like little shimmers and glimmers of like her just being Nomi, but like brunette. How they, and again, like going back to their dinner scene where she baptizes Nomi, as they like were poor girls from nowhere and like no background to really, speak of, but they all wanted one thing, which was, their name and lights, and like what comes with that, money, stability, comfort, luxury. They have like the same sort of hunger, but I think that like Crystal has grown into it and has had a chance to like luxuriate in it, whereas like Nomi is like trying to strike while the iron's hot and ultimately misses. But what do you guys think about
I also think it would be like super easy for her to be made into just like a buddy character, or like a take her under her wing kind of character.
Mm-hmm.
It also would be easy to just like pinhole her into like, well, like she's just like another woman that gets corrupted by this system. It's like interesting that she also is attracted to Nomi, like very nakedly is wanting to have sex with Nomi and wanting to exploit Nomi for sexual reasons and things like that. I think that just adds an extra layer to that character, again, making it so that like it is kind of everyone involved in this scenario becomes corrupted, and it's bad for everyone. And like even the women are capable of these things, for sure. Not that her attraction is wrong necessarily, that it's wrong that she's attracted to her, but it's definitely wrong that she is exploiting her power and using her power against her.
Yeah, Gina Gershon was definitely, like I was saying before, I think that she hits exactly the right tone that this movie takes, which is not like a realistic one and not like a subtle one. But when she does it, I think she's like just well suited for it. She's well cast, and just kind of hits that. I do wish that I got more of that, say, like, as good as Kyle MacLachlan is, I love him, just in general as an actor. But I don't think he
more
gets
of
to
him.
do anything fun or interesting here. Like performance-wise, especially as the movie goes on, it just kind of needs him to be the representative of all, male exploiters. And maybe that's just overall with the movie. I wish it had either committed more to being the big, broad, silly monkeys running around, bare breasts everywhere satire that a lot of people seem convinced this is, that it sounds like none of us really are totally on board with that with that reading. But I also think that sometimes people are using that as an excuse for the stuff that doesn't work, which is where we differ. So just to make my final thoughts, I guess, and I'll let everyone have their own, final say here, is, if the intention was to get a movie that was going to do the backstage showbiz melodrama out of the realm of the reputable and then, into this lower rung of show business with a ambitious but kind of tragic or hapless lead, that Boogie Nights is that movie, and is like all of the heartfelt stuff that I'm not really connecting with this movie is something that I can see done like brilliantly, say, in a movie like that. I don't think this is really that kind of a movie. So maybe I did want something maybe closer to Starship Troopers that would have really blown this up to like proportions where I was actually gaining some insight from the shallowness and the broadness and the cartoonishness of everything, as opposed to it seeming kind of like a lesser take on other movies that are doing the same thing. But I just want to get my negativity out of the way so that you guys go ahead and end us on a higher note. Maybe first with Seth, and then we can let Grace have the final word.
Yeah. I mean, again, talking about layers of experience with this, like, I like that it is this thing you turn over in your hands, and I feel like it's kind of different to me every time I watch it. I mean, to go back all the way, like the first time I had ever heard of this, TMI, I was a teenager, and the pool scene was on Pornhub, and I had no idea what this was. But I watched the scene, and I was like, wow, this is a pretty crazy movie, and had no idea of the context. And finally, I saw the movie and realized, like, again, that like very fascinating, like rhyming kind of thing that goes on with the lap dance scene and that scene and everything that's going on in this movie. Had no idea that it was like so much more than just a like titty movie or something. But again, I definitely, upon watching it the second time, like was confused by the campy rumors and everything. I do wind up seeing it as a grab bag of a lot of these things. I like that it has so much of these things. I don't think it's very even. I don't think it's structurally sound as far as which angle it's doing. I think it's doing too much. You have to kind of enjoy that it's too much, or you don't enjoy that it's too much, I think. Because I like that it does work on its first mission of being a sexy movie. I think it is still a sexy movie. I think there is also a layer of not like knowing like very deep satire. I don't really engage with it on that way. I wind up seeing it as some realism going on here in a heightened kind of like, fuck it, it's Hollywood. We gotta like push things to like some register of 11 here and there. But I like Nomi's performance, I go back to that, and that being a character that I agree exists. And even in this cartoony realm of this movie, I believe it. Sure, I don't know, whatever word, vibe, that's there. One of those, and that's not going to work for some people, but I got onto it for sure with this. Not unwatching.
Oh,
me neither, just to be clear.
No, it's never unwatching. Grace. Always watching.
Never can.
I think
that would be a shocker if you just unwatched this right now. That would be a plot twist. Okay.
Absolutely not.
That would be very Nomi. You'd be like, fuck it, I don't give a shit about this movie. I hate your fucking podcast. I'm out of here.
No, absolutely not. I remain
scorched earth.
I remain emotionally consistent with this film in that it is one that moves me to such high highs and low lows. And I enjoy I enjoy the backstage narrative. I enjoy the, searching for like the smaller aspect of searching for female friendship and community amongst like a crowd of exploited beings, not a victim but a survivor. And I final thoughts, gosh. I hope I never run out of things to say about this movie. I hope that I'm able to constantly like return to it and see, some new, facet of it that I hadn't yet um, noticed. And with that being said, I'm only on the third watch, so there's, plenty more where that came from. But my my biggest opinion and my biggest feelings towards this film are, you know what I had said earlier, that like possible thesis of fuck hope, all ye who enter. This is a hopeful and hopeless movie at the same time, and so to that, fuck it. You can win, you can't win. You are a dancer, you're not a dancer, you're more than just a body, you're not more than just a body. Can you rise up, or are you beaten down and dragged down? This is, I think, a really raw. And I agree at any point, Seth, when you said that these people, these women, are realistic, and that I feel like I've met them, like I've known them. um, I just I feel so strongly about any movie that gives you difficult, or difficult to read, difficult to like, difficult to decipher female characters for you to work with and watch as they try and succeed or try and fail. Any film that puts the camera on these women and their stories and allows them to, own them and, act with some agency is is important and a necessary film in my book. Beyond this being just, I think, beautiful from top to bottom, the whole look of it, the glitz, the glamour, the rhinestones, the Swarovski crystals, the eye makeup, um, like I said, Crystal Connor's abs as an accessory. I just think that this hits everything for me. And I really hope that some the folks that told me that they watched it for the wrong reasons would maybe try and maybe watch it for the right ones, which is to have a story, which is to, be told this story and try and identify and empathize with it.
All right, the conversation continues about Showgirls. It's never ending.
They're showing, we're telling.
Yeah. Although it sounds like we can disregard Pennies from Heaven, the sequel, and maybe just
I'm very curious.
not continue the conversation with that one. I've also heard there's a documentary that is supposed to be really good. I haven't seen, but I read a lot about it before we talked about this, called You Don't Know Me.
Whoa.
Like the name of the
You
character.
don't know me. Yeah.
Yes, which is about the whole making of the movie, the phenomenon afterwards, and a very deep conversation apparently about how it is regarded now, and interviews with people involved with the movie and how they see it. And if I would have found out about it in time, I might have watched it before this, because it sounds like it touches on all the things that we brought up with people who were intimately involved in it. So check out You Don't Know Me.
Well, now we got to do the
for the
podcast
title alone. Yeah, but Grace, thank you so much. You were obviously the best possible person to have on for this particular episode. We wanted to have a perspective like yours. And yeah, that was great. Is there anything that you want to like throw out there, let people know about as far as with anything going on with Cinematary or anything else that's upcoming?
Well,
Yeah,
sure.
what are you
First
up
I'll
to?
say, yeah, I'm up to so much. First, I'll say I'm blushing. You're so nice. Like, I love this movie, and thank you for the kind words, and thank you for, giving me this opportunity to discuss a movie that I think I hold very dear to my heart and feel very protective of. As far as what I have going on, I have 2 things. That looks like 4. I have 2 things going up. First, there is with Cinematary, we are on a brief hiatus, but we are coming back in a new form. We are reconfiguring the podcast to go from bi-weekly to a more serialized sort of dump. There's got to be a more attractive way to say that, but we're doing like series, seasons is actually the word. And so this first season that we're going to come back with is going to focus on internet movies. That is curated by Andrew Swafford to explore depictions and evolutions of the internet and internet computer technology through film, starting at its like most nascent state as like computer as memory or like computer as brain, with films like Desk Set and War Games. And then we're going to move on into the 90s hack space with, of course, The Matrix, on into the dangers of social media and the problems that that poses on, youth culture, and then on into AI and like speculative AI and beyond. So we're gonna put out series, and they'll be much more in depth, and there will be a syllabus release to go along with it. So then everybody can learn and join in the homework with us. And then I have also recently started a new podcast with my friend Janine Winfrey called Check Out Cinema, where we check out movies from the library and discuss them. Just as a way to highlight. Yeah, isn't that so fun? We're both librarians. We work at the same library together. However, the podcast is not affiliated with our library, and the opinions therein are exclusively our own. We have to make that disclaimer. But we really wanted to do something that would highlight library holdings and the accessibility of cinema in your own backyard. So that's all I got going on. And if you're in the Knoxville area, I host karaoke at a local bar here. I'm the best karaoke host in town, so come see me.
God, I believe it. We got to get down there.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
We do karaoke once a week here, me and Marc, so we got to make our way.
Y'all got to come do karaoke with me. We'll have we'll get one more person. We'll do a barbershop quartet. We'll get
Tony.
Gosh, who does? Tony. We'll get Tony. And then the 4 of us. Yes.
Marc has a beautiful voice.
Showgirls routine. All right, check out Cinema. Is that out already? Can people find that now?
It is out already. You can find it now. We're available on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify at checkout_cinema. And you can follow us on Instagram, and you can follow Cinematary on Instagram as well. And those are just about the best darn things I have going in my life.
Hell yeah.
All right. Check out Cinema, Cinematary, karaoke, and now for the grace of God go we.
Shake it.
Sorry, to throw one more in.
Me or we or I don't know.
We.
There's no more me. There's just we.
You don't know me.
Unwatchables is produced by Tony Scarpitti, hosted by me, Marc Dottavio, and Seth Troyer, with artwork by Micah Kraus. You can find Seth and I on Letterboxd under Marc Dottavio and Sloth Troyer. You can also check us out at unwatchablespod.com for links to our Twitter and Instagram, or support us on Patreon for bonus content and to have a say in what we watch. Thanks for listening.